It was the last breath of winter on the frontier plains, when the wind cut like a blade and the land lay empty except for bones, dust, and men too stubborn to die. Daniel Keaton was one of those men, a lone rancher scraping life out of a dying patch of land. His cattle were thin and his stomach thinner. He'd buried his wife a year ago. Fever took her fast, and since then, silence had been his only companion. When the snow melted and the rivers swelled with brown water, he saddled his old sorrel horse, Duke, and rode out at dawn to hunt for food. The sky was bruised purple and gold, a cold promise of a long day ahead. He rode through miles of scrub, the air filled with the cry of distant hawks and the sigh of wind in dead grass. By noon, he had seen nothing but the tracks of wolves and the shadow of a life that seemed to drift further away every day. But fate out here wasn't gentle. It waited like a trap, and that afternoon Daniel Keaton rode right into it. He first saw her near the dry creek bed, what looked like a bundle of rags in the dust. Duke's ears twitched as Daniel dismounted, rifle ready. The bundle moved. A low, pained sound escaped from beneath the dirt-caked blanket. He pushed it aside and froze. Beneath it lay a young Apache woman, blood crusted on her shoulder, her dark hair tangled with sweat and sand. Her breathing was shallow, her lips cracked, her skin fever-hot even in the cold wind. The instant her eyes opened, fierce and black as night, she reached for a knife that wasn't there. Her voice came out raw in broken English. "You kill me quick, white man." Daniel just stared at her, then at the wound, a bullet half-healed, festering. "I'm not gonna kill you," he muttered, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "You'll die out here if I leave you?" She spat weakly at the ground. "Then leave." But Daniel Keaton wasn't built for leaving. Not after burying one he loved. Not after watching everything he had rot away piece by piece. He lifted her as gently as he could, her head falling against his chest, and carried her to his horse. "I said no," she murmured, voice fading. "You don't get a say, ma'am," he said quietly. "You're coming with me." By nightfall, Daniel reached his cabin. The sky had turned to iron and the fire inside his hearth glowed faintly. He laid the woman on his bed, his late wife's bed, and set to work cleaning the wound. The bullet had gone clean through, but the infection was bad. As he boiled water, he caught her staring at him with suspicion like a wildcat cornered. "What's your name?" he asked. No answer. "Fine, don't talk." He poured whiskey over the wound and she hissed in pain, her fingers digging into the blanket. When it was done, she collapsed into uneasy sleep. Daniel sat by the fire, staring at her face in the flickering light. Strong, proud, marked by suffering. He'd fought Apaches once years ago. They were the enemy then, but now she was just another soul caught between death and the cold. Days passed. The woman's fever broke and her strength returned bit by bit. She spoke little, but when she did, it was sharp as a knife. Her name was Naya. Her people had been ambushed by bounty hunters. She was the only one who escaped. "They took my brother," she said one night, eyes glinting in the firelight. "He's still alive." Daniel didn't know what to say. He wasn't a hero, just a man trying to survive. But something in her voice lit an old spark in him, the kind of courage that once rode with soldiers and men who believed in right and wrong. "You can't go after them alone," he said. "You'll die." She turned to him, gaze hard as flint. "Then I die fighting." He looked into her eyes and saw the same fire that used to burn in his wife's, defiance against everything cruel and merciless in the world. "Maybe you don't have to die," he said. "Maybe we ride together." The next morning they did. Daniel packed his rifle, his revolver, and a little food. Naya insisted on walking, but her wound still ached, so he helped her onto Duke. The wind bit their faces as they rode south, following the tracks of wagon wheels and horse hooves. They barely spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was a bond built on the rhythm of hooves and the promise of vengeance. By dusk, smoke rose on the horizon. The bounty camp. Daniel dismounted, checking his revolver. Naya looked at him, eyes narrow. "You could walk away," she whispered. He shook his head. "I've done enough walking away." That night they struck. Daniel's bullet shattered the lantern by the gate, throwing the camp into chaos. Men shouted, scrambling for weapons. Naya moved like a shadow, slipping through the darkness with silent fury. Daniel shot one, then another, ducking behind barrels as gunfire lit the night. Naya found her brother tied to a post, barely breathing. "Go!" Daniel shouted, covering them. A bullet grazed his arm, another ripped through his coat. But he stood his ground until the last man fell silent. When it was over, the night smelled of gunpowder and blood. They buried the dead beneath the mesquite trees and rode back before dawn. Naya's brother was weak but alive. She said little, but the look in her eyes, soft now, filled with something like peace, was enough. "You saved me," she said quietly as the sun rose behind them. Daniel shook his head. "You'd have done the same," she smiled faintly. "Maybe. But you're the first white man who didn't see me as less." Her words hit him harder than any bullet. He realized then that what he'd done wasn't just saving her life, it was saving what was left of his own soul. When they reached his cabin again, spring had begun to breathe life into the land. Flowers pushed through the dry soil and the rivers whispered again. Naya stayed a while longer, helping him mend fences and tend the cattle. Sometimes they'd sit on the porch as the sun set, saying nothing, just listening to the wind. Two souls who had every reason to hate each other, but somehow found something better. When the time came for her to leave, Daniel saddled Duke and handed her a small pouch of food and bullets. "You'll find your way," he said. She looked at him one last time. "So will you." Then she was gone, a streak of shadow and fire riding into the dawn. Weeks later, Daniel stood where she had left, the horizon endless before him. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like a burden. It felt like peace. The memory of that wounded Apache woman, fierce and unbroken, stayed with him like a song, and when he saddled his horse again, he didn't ride out just to hunt for food. He rode out to live. Ending message for viewers. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can bloom even in the harshest deserts, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every story we tell carries a lesson of courage, love, and redemption. Join our growing community of story lovers, and let's keep these powerful tales of the Wild West alive together.